Over 850 games have now been announced to be released at the Essen SPIEL trade show, which, as of the time of this recording, is still 6 weeks away, with more titles being added to the list every single day. I mean, you open up the list and there's more every single time. There's always more. They just don't stop coming. And I recently made the brilliant decision to start sifting through the Essen catalog of cardboard and list my top 100 picks for the show. Well, this is our 4th installment, continuing with my next 10 Essen SPIEL top picks. Hello there, and welcome back to this Pair of Dice Paradise special series of my top Essen SPIEL picks. Now, for this list, I am focusing on games that I haven't covered yet in other recent videos, along with games with a 2019 or 2020 English release date. Even so, that still leaves a much more substantial list to comb through than what I first realized it would be. Nevertheless, I shall continue through my list, presenting it in no particular order, continuing with number 31, the 2-hour tile placement civilization game by Stonemaier Games, Tapestry. Tapestry here challenges players to create the civilization with the most storied history, starting at the very beginning of mankind and then reaching into the future. The paths that players will choose along the way will vary greatly from real-world events or people, making each civilization unique. Now, in Tapestry, civilizations start from nothing and advance on any of these 4 different advancement tracks, covering science, technology, exploration, and military, and they'll cover these tracks to earn progressively better and better benefits. Players can focus on a specific track or take a more balanced approach. And over the course of the game, they will improve their income, build their capital city, leverage their asymmetrical abilities, and earn victory points, all while gaining tapestry cards as well that will tell the story of their civilization as it unfolds. Now, if Tapestry is anything like the other most recent Stonemaier Games releases, Wingspan and Scythe have been, it's going to be a big uproar that makes quite a dent on the gaming community for months and months to come, which is why I, for one, am really eager to find out what Tapestry brings to the table and to find out if that thing that it brings is going to be worth all the hubbub that is inevitably going to have come with it. All aboard number 32, Social Train, an area control game of sorts, with some take that elements thrown in by GDM Games. Now, the social train in this game is a new type of social network, like Facebook or Twitter, except it's also an actual locomotive, I think. Maybe. Perhaps. Here's what I do know. While preparing to board the social train, players need to choose their passengers and then try to empower them to experience a very pleasant trip while they ride the social train. Or perhaps take a different tactic and do everything that they can to make their trip a nightmarish experience. Either one works. Each turn begins with a card from the event deck being played, and then each player may perform 3 actions in any order that they like. These actions being placing a passenger from their hand into an empty seat on the train, activating a passenger's ability, and drawing 2 cards from the passenger deck. The game continues until it ends, and it ends when the last card of the event deck is drawn and the player with the most likes is the winner. There you go. Makes sense? I hope so, because I have to admit, even after going through the game's description, I'm not completely sure what the social train in Social Train actually is. I feel like it's kind of like the Matrix. No one can be told what the social train is. The only way to understand it is to experience it for yourself. What does that mean? So yeah, that's why Social Train is on my list. Simply because I want to find out exactly what the train in this game actually is. Is it a metaphorical train, or is it an actual choo-choo that you're putting little passengers on as you play? I don't know, but I really kind of want to a little bit. It's enough to make it on my list because what is this game about? Number 33 is Warhammer Underworlds Dreadfane, a game of strategy, fast-paced combat, and devious ploys for 2 players by Games Workshop. In the game, each player controls a warband of miniatures, pitting them against a rival within the deadly Dreadfane. And trapped within this lethal coliseum, the fighters must outwit and outfight the warband that opposes them. So gather your warband, enhance your warriors with unique skills and upgrades, and then lead them to victory against your foes. Dreadfane is the latest of several expansions for Games Workshop's Underworlds series, and in my opinion, this game often goes underrated and overlooked. And this is a pity, because this is especially a great introduction to the Warhammer universe if you're a hobby gamer who has some curiosity about it, but you just don't have all the bandwidth to dive all the way into the rules and all the history and all the models that you have to assemble that come with a lot of the more extensive Warhammer games, such as 40K, Age of Sigmar, and Kill Team, and all those other dice chuckers with lookup tables and cross-reference sheets and things that you gotta do and worry about. All of that is kind of secondary to this game, and this focuses on the card play and the tactics that you have to employ to make that card play work for you. So yeah, if you want a skirmish game that focuses on tactics and card play from customizable decks that you'll put together, then I highly recommend taking a look at the Underworlds line. The previous expansions in this series, Shadespire and Night Vault, did not disappoint, which is why I am very interested in digging in to see what Dreadfane offers as well. Number 34 is Mutants, a fighting deck building card game with a video game theme from Lucky Duck Games. And in Mutants, 2 to 4 players have to mix and match genetics to create the ultimate warriors and demonstrate their prowess in an arena of battle. By dominating in the arena and freezing the most valuable mutants, you'll gain prestige, and whoever collects the most prestige, well, wins the battle and the game. Each round, players take turns until all players have used every card in their hand, and then, at the end of the round, the player whose token is closest to the top space of the arena track scores prestige based on where they are on that track. The game then proceeds this way for 5 rounds, after which players reveal their archives and then gain additional prestige based on the freeze value of the mutants that they have placed there, which makes a lot more sense when you're familiar with the game, rather than just hearing some guy randomly spout about all those things on YouTube where it's almost incoherent, even more incoherent than usual, for which I apologize for that. Sure, being a deck-building game that features an asymmetrical card pool and purportedly requires players to manage their cards to incorporate long-term planning makes Mutants sound interesting, but no. What actually tipped the scales for me and put this game on my list is that the game's publisher, Lucky Duck Games, actually went back and redesigned some of the artwork that they had received because they felt the original artwork was overly sexualized and objectified the female characters depicted in the game. Regarding this, Vincent from Lucky Duck Games posted on the game's forums, quote, "We are not trying to make everybody happy, but rather stick to who we are as a publisher. Most of this art comes from a video game that we licensed, and the sexualization came from using this art as is. So we are looking for alternative art for these cards from the owner of the license." Now, whether or not you think all of that was even worth mentioning, they, like so many others in our industry, not only have a passion for the products they produce, but also for the community of players that those products will affect. I will say that I've had an opportunity to chat with the members of Lucky Duck Games several times over the past couple of years at conventions, and the statement that they issued does fit in line with what I've learned about them as a group of people. Number 35 is Lux Aeterna, a real-time single-player card game with a sci-fi theme by Frosted Games. Well, it was bound to happen. Your spaceship has sustained massive damage, is falling apart all around you, and is drifting towards the ultimate catastrophe, a black hole. You, my friend, are alone. But fortunately, you brought the single-player card game Lux Aeterna with you to help pass the time. Lux Aeterna challenges the player to draw and play all the cards in its main deck one turn after another without the spaceship you're in collapsing completely or falling into that black hole before the clock runs out. The cards in the game have multiple functions, such as recording damage to one of the ship's systems, repairing that damage, or moving ever closer to the black hole. And as the ship's systems collapse, the game becomes more and more difficult. But don't worry, this game's got your back, because it can be made even more difficult by offering several event cards that get shuffled into the deck to represent glitches that you encounter, while simultaneously still doing everything else that you've got to be doing to be staying alive. And now, I'm actually gonna level with you. I have been struggling with this next part because I have encountered the most elaborate, extensive typo in any script I have ever written for myself. So After struggling through this for several minutes, I have come to the conclusion I'm just going to read to you the final sentence about this game as written in my script. And here I go. Stay alive, period. Get harder for you, semicolon. If you should repair a system, then you just might avoid the ultimate doom. I don't know what that meant, but what I do know is that 4 out of 5 astronauts who are also trapped on a crippled space vessel, inevitably hurtling towards the infinite nothingness that awaits them across a black hole's event horizon, recommend the following product while experiencing their eternal atomic level disintegration. Hey, welcome back. After the cosmic terror that was inflicted on us by the previous game, Lux Aeterna, let's now relax with a game set in serene, ancient Japan. It's number 36, Fuji Koro, a game published by Game Brewer in which we discover that Mount Fuji is on the verge of erupting, with red-hot lava soon consuming the 3 sacred temples hidden deep within the volcano. The Shogun is determined to preserve the precious heritage and sends its most noble and gifted samurai warriors on a quest inside the volcano to retrieve the valuable goods. Okay, several things. First of all, whose bright idea was it to build the sacred temples inside of a volcano? You don't do that. That's like Sacred Temple Building 101. Okay, regardless, I suppose that's the path we're now on. So yes, please, continue game description. Players will try and gather sacred scrolls and blueprints for magical weapons, gather resources, craft the best possible gear, and try to get out of the volcano while encountering fantastical dragons who will try to defeat them. Well, now there's dragons? Dragons who live inside of an active volcano? What do they eat? Well, unsuspecting samurai, apparently. Well, Fuji Koro is on my list because actually its theme does sound fun and intriguing, and its components look really elaborate and colorful. So if this is a game that can deliver on the same sense of exploration and press your luck adventure that it wants to, well then this will definitely be one that deserves a closer look at Essen. Number 37 is Paranormal Detectives, a murder mystery deduction party game, also by Lucky Duck Games. Now, bad news, there's been a murder. Worse news, it was you. And unless the last thing you remember was running into an erupting volcano, the cause of your demise is going to be a mystery that needs to be solved. Enter the Paranormal Detectives. In the game, one player takes on the role of a ghost, and all other players work as paranormal detectives and need to discover how that ghost died. Using their paranormal detective abilities, they will communicate with that ghost, asking open questions about the details of the crime. The ghost then answers in a variety of ghostly ways, such as arranging a hangman's knot, ooh, very ghosty, playing chosen tarot cards, creating a word puzzle on a talking board, yeah, that's so ghosty, or by holding the hand of the detective and drawing on it, as a ghost would do. The ghost players receive a story card depicting all of the grisly details of the case, and each detective receives an asymmetrical, pre-constructed set of interaction cards, a player investigation sheet, and a player screen. And twice during the game, each detective can try and guess the killer, the location, the motive, the murder weapon, and how it was all done. And if they're right, they've cracked the case. Otherwise, the ghost secretly informs the detective of how many of their answers were incorrect. I'm always interested in trying these games of hindered information dissemination, such as Mysterium, or Codenames, or One Key, so I'm interested to see what new wrinkles Paranormal Detectives brings to the table. Number 38 is the revised dice-rolling press-your-luck zombie survival game by Grey Fox Game, Run, Fight, or Die Reloaded, a revamped and refreshed edition of the Richard Launius game, Run, Fight, or Die. In the game, you play a hero trying to survive wave after wave of zombies coming just right at you. And to do this, each player has a unique character who has their own special traits, including a minor, major, and super combo that they can pull off under the right conditions. And this streamlined version of the game removes several decks from the original game, including the fleeing deck and the event deck. And players also roll 6 dice instead of 5, and have new combos that are introduced to help mitigate against tough zombie-filled rolls that they might encounter. Additionally, players can now use followers to soak up the damage coming in from the zombies, which is convenient but not great for them, but too bad. The original Run, Fight, or Die came out about 5 years ago, and the improvements that Grey Fox Games has introduced in this version is what's really put it on my radar as one of the games to check out in more detail at the Essen SPIEL. Number 39 is Castle Dukes, a dexterity game of medieval city building published by Medieval Lords. This game sets the premise that, as a duke, you have decided to build the greatest castle in the land. However, the game offers no background as to why you are motivated to embark on such an endeavor, just that you are in fact inclined to do so. And you know what? That's okay. I mean, there's worse things that you could construct, like a sacred temple inside of a volcano for one. Now, each round, players start with several coins, and then will use them to purchase rooms from a row of cards on the table. Construction of your 3D castle then commences. But beware, as you do so, if at any point in the game your castle collapses, be it a small portion of it or just one tiny component just falling off on the floor, rolling under a chair, and you got to get down on your hands and knees and grab it, and to add insult to injury, you will also take a crumble token, which reduces your victory points at the end of the game. But don't worry, it doesn't get any worse than that, other than the deadly dragon who also exists and will occasionally leave his volcano home to come and raze the countryside. And if your castle isn't well fortified against dragon attacks, well, you just might crumble away that way too. Are you a Grand Duke or Duchess who has a habit of building unfeasible structures in ridiculous locations that are prone to dragon attacks? Well, if so, consider investing in a Pair of Dice Paradise Dragon Insurance Policy. These policies will protect your kingdom and its sacred artifacts against fire, wind damage, and claw attacks. So stop dragging your feet and purchase Pair of Dice Paradise Dragon Insurance today. Offer void for structures inside active volcanoes. Which brings us to number 40, which is ShakeUp, an economic take-that card game also by Medieval Lords. Now, bad news, there's been a murder. But good news, I'm still referring to the murder that took place in Paranormal Detectives, so it doesn't affect this game in any way. But worse news, your favorite IT company is staring Chapter 11 bankruptcy square in its face. Its cost of operations is just too high and revenue is just too low. Yeah, that'll do it. So in a last-ditch effort to save itself from financial oblivion, the company is looking to hire a top-tier business consultant to turn it around because, yeah, that always works. And you and your fellow players just happen to be those consultants, one of whom will win the contract and try and salvage the company. The others will probably be paid for their time anyway, but won't have any of the responsibility or liability that goes along with trying to salvage a company. So really, I don't see how you're coming out ahead. ShakeUp presents itself as a reverse deck building game or deck destruction game. And in it, players will each have their own identical deck of cards, which represent the same staff members of the IT company at the center of the game. But how each player handles the company will be different, and that is where the better consultant will stand out. The first consultant to put the company into the green wins the game, and to accomplish this, they will utilize different abilities from the cards that they draw. Each time a player's deck is emptied, they have a chance to call an audit. And when that happens, they'll count up their total revenue earned, then reduce it by the salary of all existing employees in their deck, as well as any unpaid loans that they have. And if it's still a positive number, they immediately win the game. But if they're wrong, they add more debt to their deck as a penalty for wasting the auditor's time. And all of that sounds really intriguing to me. And I like the way that players will need to dismantle their deck as efficiently as possible while racing the other players to be the first to conduct a successful audit. That's what earns ShakeUp the final spot in this installment of my list of Essen picks. But there's still more to come. So join me again in just a few days as we continue on to the next batch of my top picks of games coming out of this year's Essen SPIEL. Until then, I've been Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise, and take care. What happens when two board game media makers join forces? I don't care. But if I did care, I would tell you that Marty Connell from Rolling Dice and Taking Names and Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise team up as Team Vest in this 24-inch by 14-inch playmat. Khaki gaming vest not included.